Welcome to Formula Bone's 2022 Mexico City Grand Prix preview. I'm Jared Borislow, but you can call me J-Bone. Let's get into it, folks. J-Bone! Our first order of business today is getting to know the Mexico City Grand Prix and its circuit, Autódromo Hermanos Rodriguez. The Mexico City Grand Prix, known as the Mexican Grand Prix from its inception up until last year, and still commonly referred to as such, was first run as a Formula One World Championship event all the way back in 1963. Known for its large crowds and rowdy atmosphere from the get-go, due in large part to the presence of Mexican drivers Pedro Rodriguez and Moises Solana on the grid, the Mexican Grand Prix served as the final race of the F1 season from 1964 to 1970. By the way, if you want to learn more about the lives of Pedro Rodriguez and his brother Ricardo, for whom the Autódromo Hermanos Rodriguez is named, as well as the 1970 Mexican Grand Prix, which was so incredibly wild that it actually caused the Mexican Grand Prix to leave the F1 calendar from 1971 to 1985, go check out my 2021 Mexico City Grand Prix preview episode where I do deep dives into both of those incredibly interesting topics. Here are 3 Mexico City Grand Prix fun facts. Fact 1, the Mexico City Grand Prix is the highest Grand Prix on the entire Formula One calendar by a very wide margin, as it takes place at an insane 2,238 meters or 1.39 miles above sea level. The second highest race, if you were wondering, is the Brazilian Grand Prix at Interlagos, which takes place at 800 meters, or about a half mile above sea level. Fact 2, every corner at the Autódromo Hermanos Rodriguez that's named after someone is named after a Mexican race car driver, except for one. Turn 17 was renamed the Nigel Mansell Turn in 2015 in honor of 1992 World Drivers' Champion Nigel Mansell, who won the Mexican Grand Prix twice and made probably the most iconic overtake in Mexican Grand Prix history by going around the outside of Gerhard Berger at the incredibly treacherous La Pelotada Turn 14, which the new Turn 17 was kind of carved out from, on the second to last lap of the 1990 Mexican Grand Prix, on the way to him finishing P2 behind Alain Prost, his teammate at Ferrari. And fact 3, no Mexican driver has ever won their home Grand Prix. Checo's P3 in last year's Mexico City Grand Prix was actually the first ever podium for a Mexican driver at their home race. And if you aren't rooting for Checo at this year's Mexico City Grand Prix, I believe you have no soul. Okay? Vamos, Checo. Let's move on to discussing the circuit itself. Autódromo Hermanos Rodriguez is 4.304 kilometers or 2.674 miles in length, and the Mexico City Grand Prix will be contested over the course of 71 laps around its 17 turns. Autódromo Hermanos Rodriguez contains one of the longest straights on the entire F1 calendar, with its main straight being 1.2 kilometers or about 3/4 of a mile in length. And yes, that weird sound that you hear right now is Red Bull fans absolutely licking their chops in anticipation of that straight, because they go fast on straights. This circuit contains arguably the most unique challenge for teams on the entire F1 calendar, and that is dealing with Mexico City's extremely high altitude. The thin air at altitude means less downforce, but also less drag. So teams will have to really nail their practice sessions so they can find that perfect setup that allows them to take full advantage of the Autódromo Hermanos Rodriguez's numerous straights, while also giving them enough downforce to excel in the circuit's numerous low and medium speed corners, while also not putting too much strain on the tires. Additionally, aerodynamics aren't the only thing that's impacted by the thin air in Mexico City. Turbos and cooling systems at altitude need to work much harder than they do at sea level to achieve these same results, which can lead to some issues such as overheating and overworking that can cause reliability concerns, so the teams need to really be on the ball in Mexico City. And finally, as many of you already know, Autódromo Hermanos Rodriguez contains the most iconic grandstand in all of Formula One and possibly all of the world. The Foro Sol grandstand, consisting of Foro Sol Norte y Foro Sol Sur, that can hold 40,000 race fans and plays host to the most vibrant atmosphere that is found anywhere on the entire F1 calendar. It will be so fun to watch the cars go through there all weekend long, especially when it's Checo. For tire compounds at the 2022 Mexico City Grand Prix, Pirelli have opted for the neutral compound range, the C2 hards, C3 mediums, and C4 softs. Pirelli Motorsport Director Mario Isola had this to say about their choice, quote, "Mexico is a completely different challenge to the two races that came before it. Over the course of a season, our tires have to cope with a wide variety of conditions depending on the individual characteristics of each venue. If you look back at the last two races, Suzuka was all about lateral forces and Austin was well balanced aerodynamically, but Mexico this weekend focuses on traction and braking. The Hermanos Rodriguez circuit does not offer a lot of grip, and the energy demands on the tires are reasonably low, as the cars do not generate much downforce in the thin air at high altitude, especially in slow corners. This year, the circuit might be more front limited, as the current generation of car tends to understeer through slow corners, which Mexico has plenty of, and this can lead to some sliding on the front tires. Due to the nature of the venue, the circuit tends to feature a dusty surface with plenty of track evolution. Understanding this and getting the tire warm-up exactly right is likely to be the key to success." End quote. Real quick, I wanted to take a second to let you know that this episode has no sponsor because it is brought to you by me, J-Bone. J-Bone! And if you want to support me, J-Bone, and the Formula Bone brand, there are 4 main ways you can do that right now. First, toss the YouTube video of this episode a like. I'm trying to get 1,500 likes on this video episode if you're able to help me out with that. Second, subscribe to the Formula Bone YouTube channel. We are inching ever closer to 100,000 YouTube subscribers. And folks, I really want that silver play button so I can add it right here to the Formula Bone set. And you can help me get it by subscribing. Third, join over 850 members of the Bone Brigade in the Formula Bone Discord server via the invite link that I have placed in the description of this episode. There's always conversation flowing in there, as well as Formula Bone updates, so come join your new favorite F1 Discord community. And finally, if you're able to, hit up the Formula Bone shop at bolenmedia.com/shop and get yourself some Formula Bone merch. If you order your Donka Seb shirt and or mug now, it should arrive in time for you to rep your love for Sebastian Vettel for his final 2 race weekends in Brazil and Abu Dhabi and beyond. J-Bone! Next up, here are some reasons why you should still care about and watch the 2022 Mexico City Grand Prix, even though the World Drivers and World Constructors Championships are both already over. First, Checo Perez is trying to become the first ever Mexican driver to win their home Grand Prix. I mean it when I say that if Checo can pull off the victory here, the podium celebration that takes place in the Foro Sol Stadium will be the craziest, most rowdy, most fanatical podium celebration in Formula One history. And even if he just podiums, the celebration will still be awesome to watch, as we saw last year. Just imagine Checo's car being lifted up on that car elevator while he's holding the Mexican flag and his dad is jumping up and down next to him, going absolutely wild. That would be absolute scenes. That's a reason why you should watch this year's Mexico City Grand Prix. Second, the battle for P2 in the World Drivers' Championship is heating up. Charles Leclerc just jumped ahead of Checo in the World Drivers' Championship standings with his podium finish at the USGP. Leclerc now has a 2-point lead with just 3 races remaining. If we are lucky, this battle will come down to Abu Dhabi. And if we're unlucky, it will come down to Abu Dhabi and then be controversially decided at the end of a single lap shootout. Third, you only get 3 more races where you can watch F1 legend Sebastian Vettel race. And as we just saw at the USGP, he's still got it. As an F1 fan, You owe it to Seb to watch him finish out his storied career, so don't be a jerk and watch the Mexico City Grand Prix. Come on. And finally, Max Verstappen can set a new record for the most wins in a Formula One season if he wins the Mexico City Grand Prix this weekend. And who doesn't like being on record watch? You know, I live for that stuff. Next up, here are my 3 bona fide race predictions for the 2022 Mexico City Grand Prix that I'm about to go 3 for 3 on without an asterisk. Bona fide prediction number 1. Checo Perez will win the Mexico City Grand Prix. I believe Checo will become the first Mexican driver to win their home Grand Prix because of my belief in the conspiracy theory that Red Bull will use Max as a support driver to make it happen now that they've already clinched both the World Drivers and World Constructors Championships. Bonafide prediction number 2. Red Bull will finish 1-2 at the Mexico City Grand Prix. Not only does the Autódromo Hermanos Rodriguez have one of the longest straights in Formula One at 1.2 kilometers or about 3/4 of a mile, it also has 2 more straights and 3 total DRS zones. This circuit is tailor-made for the straight-loving Red Bull car, so long as it is able to perform well at altitude like it did last year when the Red Bulls finished P1 and P3. And bonafide prediction number 3, Alex Albon will finish in the points at the Mexico City Grand Prix. We all know the Williams car excels at straight line speed and subsequently at holding cars up behind it via DRS trains. These qualities should make it so that if Alex Albon is able to qualify well on Saturday, which hopefully he can do thanks to all those straights at the Autódromo Hermanos Rodriguez, he should then hopefully be able to maintain his position in the top 10 on Sunday. Those were J-Bone's Bonafide race predictions. Now I want to hear your Bonafide race predictions. Make sure to let me see them in the YouTube comment section of this episode right now. Next up, I'm going to now give my Bonafide pre-race weekend predictions for the top 5 finishers in Sunday's Mexico City Grand Prix with zero reasoning nor explanation. P5, Carlos Sainz. P4, Lewis Hamilton. P3, Charles Leclerc. P2, Max Verstappen. And P1, Checo Perez. That's it for today's episode of the Formula Bone F1 show. If you enjoyed the show and are able to, I'd really appreciate it if you bought a piece of Formula Bone merch available now on bolenmedia.com/shop. There's a link to the fully revamped Formula Bone shop in the description of this episode. For Formula One updates between now and my Mexico City Grand Prix recap episode, be sure to join over 850 members of the Bone Brigade in the Formula Bone Discord server via the invite link that I've placed in the description of this episode. Also, be sure to follow me on social media at Formula Bone, where I post all the time, as well as at my real name, Jared Borislow. That's at JaredBorislow. Until next time, folks, J-Bone!